I'm Rosario Bonanno. I'm located in Italy, but I'm covering all the European, the East area of Europe, so also Moldavia, etc. I'm the sales engineer for Netwrix. I have more or less 20 years of experience. Before starting this journey with Netwrix, I was part of an Israeli company called Cyberbit, and I was involved in the cyber attack simulation for Blue Team, Red Team, and in the past I was also a Symantec system engineer in Italy. Let's start with our session today. We have 20 minutes. We want to speak about how to mitigate a cyber incident, and in particular a ransomware attack, by using the data access governance. But first I want to show you this slide to understand our mission. In many companies around the world, we have the siloed approach to security. This means that we have the data, identity, and the infrastructure. And in many companies, we have a specific team that cover the data protection, another team who is covering the identity protection, and another the infrastructure protection. This means that we have a lot of blind spots. Why? Because if something happens at identity level, the attacker is able to access on your data. Or if you have a problem, a vulnerability at infrastructure level, you can have the same situation from the infrastructure. I can do a privilege escalation, and then I can steal your credential, and I can access on your data. So this is why we think that we are in the best position to give you the visibility that you need in order to detect if you have toxic condition inside your organization. This means not just vulnerability, but also bad configuration, bad behavior of your IT department or of your users inside the network. And what we can do for you is we can stay in the middle, we can audit everything, and we can give you a real good visibility in order to understand what happens inside your organization. So this is just to introduce our mission. How we can do that? We have the data access governance pillar, so data protection, and we can classify the information, and we can give you the visibility in order to implement inside your organization a data access governance program. We have a privilege access management solution because we want to reduce the attack surface. When the attacker is coming in your organization, he is looking for opportunity for privilege escalation. And with the privilege escalation, I can do additional action inside the organization. I can access the data, I can access on Active Directory. Active Directory is connected to data security, so we want to protect your credential. We want to understand what happened on Active Directory. If someone is going to change something on Active Directory, for example, if someone modifies the admin CD holder, this is a persistent technique. We want to have in real time this information. And then we want to track every change inside the organization, because sometimes when we have an attack in progress, the attacker is going to modify something inside the organization. I want to go very fast to explain a little bit what happens when we are victim of about a ransomware attack. Usually, we receive the call from our user, and they say, "Oh, I have a strange situation on my computer." And usually, we have something like this: the message, "Okay, if you want back your data, you have to pay me." Okay. If you are lucky, you have the message in the desktop in HTML format, for example. But sometimes you have the full disk encryption, like the example on on the right side. When you have the full disk encryption, you have really less possibility to complete the investigation. Usually, what we are going to do is analyze the victim machine to understand the file created or modified in the attack time range. We check the prefetch file, we check the network connection. Why? Because we want to understand how the attacker it was be able to attack our machine or our network. Then we analyze the payload. Why? Because we want to understand how the propagation of the malware inside the organization, the driver selection, etc. Then we want to understand the source because we want to avoid to have the same situation in the future. And then we are going to do network forensic. This means that when we are under attack during the investigation process, we must start the investigation at a very different level. Windows level, Linux level, operating system level, or network level, etc., etc. We must detect the evidence regarding every single actions inside the network related to the cyber attack. And at the end, what we have to do is to understand the impact of the attack, react, and determine our option, what it means. I have to pay, or I can restore my data because I have the backup, or you have to understand if you have to call the police in order to start also another kind of investigation. So we must understand who are the users involved in the attack, the machine involved in the attack, the list of the file encrypted to understand the business impact of this specific situation, and then the infection method and the techniques used by the attacker to attack our network. Because what we want is to avoid to have the same situation in the future. And actually, we have a specific framework. This is the NIST framework to manage the ransomware risk. And you know, we have to do a lot of different things. Use antivirus, keep computer fully patched, segment your network, verify that each account has the appropriate access only, etc., etc., etc. But then we have the incident response process. And this is very important in every situation. You must, I really like the framework. Here we have just the high level overview of the framework, the preparation phase, the detection analysis phase, the containment, eradication, recovery, and then the post-incident activity. This framework helps you to prepare your network and your team to be able to manage a real incident, and then to prepare your organization from the technology point of view. You need visibility. You need a process, a workflow to speed up the investigation, and you need the collaboration, information sharing between the team members. But what I really like is the lesson learned phase. Why? Because the lesson learned phase is the last phase of the incident response process. And in this phase, we are going to discuss, okay, guys, what happened in this organization? Why we had this incident? Who, what, where, why, and how? We must acquire all information in order to understand how to protect our network in order to avoid to have the same situation. And usually, in this phase, many organizations understand that they don't have visibility on the data. And when we speak about a ransomware attack, the reality is that the target of this attack is the data in your database, and the data on your file server, the data on your cloud repository, SharePoint, Office, etc. So we must be able to govern our data if we really want to protect the data. Why? Because who has access to the data? We must be able to answer this question. How do they have access? We must avoid the overexposure situation. Why you have this data in this folder if no one access this data from a long time? Stale data, we must archive. Archive is a method to avoid the overexposition, the overexposure of data. Overexposure is a problem. It's like to have a flat network without network zones. This means that if I attack your client, I can go everywhere inside the organization. And by using our technology, we can answer this question: who has access to my data? How they have access, and what level of access they have? Why it is important? Because if I have a ransomware an incident on this machine where I'm connected right now, the propagation is going, the target is all the shares that I can reach with the proper permission, modify permission, okay? If I can avoid to give full control to the user, I can mitigate the impact of the attack. Another very important information is who is accessing data, what they are doing, because in this way, I can say, if Rosario is using the file just in read only, why I assigned to him the full control on this folder? So I can restrict, I can apply the least privilege model in this way, okay? This is very important. Who own the data and can make decision. You know, as a IT professional, we can't say, okay, let's stop this share, let's delete the data. We must understand who is the owner, and we must speak with them, with the owner, in order to evaluate the risk. The risk, for example, to keep on a specific folder sensitive data where I have many people that can access, or an open condition. Open condition means everyone full control, for example. Is the data stale or no longer needed? Why you have on your file share the very old data? You have to store, you have to archive this information. If I don't need this information anymore, I can archive the information. So if I have an incident and the archive is protected in the proper way, okay, I can save this data. This is a very, very best practice, in my opinion. And then which file contains sensitive data. This is very important, because in this way you can understand, you can evaluate the risk. The risk is related on the value of the information that you have on your system. And so you can say, okay, I have my PCI DSS data on this folder. I want to protect in the proper way this folder to avoid that if I have an attacker inside the organization, I can avoid the exfiltration, I can avoid the encryption of this file. Another very important information is we can also create a custom alert to help you to understand what happened inside your organization. The idea is, if you have a file share permission on a critical folder, I want to give you in real time this information. Why? Because probably is or can be a misconfiguration that exposes your organization at risk, okay? Or can be a part of the attack flow. Usually, if you want to attack someone, you are going to look for privilege escalation, check if you can modify something to have access to another area of the network, etc. In this way, by using our solution, we can speed up the investigation. For example, when we have a ransomware attack, usually we have a situation like this. You have your folder and you have the list of the files encrypted by the ransomware. And if you remember the incident response process, one of the first point is understand the impact of the attack. With one click, by using our search tool, you can detect the list of the file encrypted. This is part of the incident investigation process, so you can speed up the process. If you don't have something like this, probably, okay, you have to conduct the investigation manually. You need time, maybe you need hours or days to really understand the impact of the attack. But the other question is, I want, in this case, for example, we can also create a filter to check the extension created by the ransomware attack. In this way, I can really, really speed up the investigation. I can react, so not just detect the attack. I can also react. This is an example. We can create an alert where we have also a response action, automatic response action. So in this case, is a very easy PowerShell script where we are just going to say, okay, give me the list of the user involved in the ransomware attack, and I can detect the ransomware attack by looking on the modification event on the file server. For example, if you have 100 modification in 60 seconds, probably is an anomaly. So you can react. I can acquire the list of the user involved in the attack. I can acquire the list of the workstation. I can disable the user, and I can create a firewall rule in order to block the propagation of the attack. So in this case, I can really mitigate the impact, because after a couple of minutes, I'm going to block the access to the file server. And so the encryption process is going to stop without having all the file inside of our file system encrypted by the ransomware. This is just an example. We have also automatic mitigation capability by using another module that can answer in real time. And because I have, I think, 2 minutes, I want just to show you another very good example. On our solution for another very important, let me say, feature that you can use, because Active Directory is very critical, we want to give you evidence. Here, for example, in this dashboard, as you can see, you have all the change in the last 7 days. You can check the change today. And so if today you have a problem, you can detect all the change that you had in the last hours. And so, for example, I can say, what happened on Active Directory? Let me check what happened on my Active Directory. So I can filter in this way. And I can detect that we have the admins, the older modification. And this is a persistent technique. And so I can create an alert. I want to receive an alert if I have this situation. Because this is a critical modification on Active Directory, and I can define the risk score, and I can also define a response action in case I want. And the result is that you are going to have the alerts overview, where you have a lot of different alerts that you can evaluate in order to understand if you have a critical situation or toxic situation inside your organization. Admin SD older modification, brute force attack, exfiltration, etc., etc., etc. We are really think that this is the best way to improve your security level inside the organization by audit your system and really understand how to protect your data. I think we are at the end of the slot. So thank you so much for your time, and it was a pleasure to be with you today.